Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and out of the ring, as well as doing acts of goodwill, community service, and charity work, helping others, paying it forward. That's what we're all about here on the show. And with me today, I've got a very special guest. He has worked for so many different promotions. I'm talking USWA, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, the WWE, man. And not to mention, he was the final wrestler trained by the late, great, legendary Tojo Yamamoto. With me today is none other than Neal Hargrove, but you may know him better as Reno Riggins. So welcome, Neal, to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. So this is an honor. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, the pleasure is all mine. So according to your biography, you were born in Nashville, Tennessee.
Born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee, went to McGavock High School. And back then Nashville was a little sleepy town and, kind of not too, it was touristy, but not like it is now. And now Nashville's basically the it city, or the what I like to refer to as the southern version of Las Vegas, without the casinos, but the parties are all here. So it's a great place. Like I said, born and raised here, and I've had the opportunity in my wrestling career to travel all over the world and do that many times. But at the end of the day, or at the end of the tour, no matter where I was at in the world, I always wanted to come back home to Nashville. It's got a great vibe. And I think what makes the vibe so great is the people that live here in Nashville. It's just, everybody's kind of in tune. So it's a great place to live.
Yeah, it's definitely become more of a mini Hollywood, I would imagine. I would say in the last 10 or so years, a lot of tourism picked up. The Grand Ole Opry, obviously, that's the staple of country music venues to attend. I've been there several times. It's definitely the tourism, lots of things to do, lots of places to go. Wrestling especially has a long history in Nashville, and of course in the Tennessee, the state of Tennessee as well. So tell me, Neal, what got you interested in professional wrestling?
I was growing up, you're a kid and you turn on Saturday morning cartoons, and then after that followed wrestling. And it was fun. It was athleticism, it was entertainment, there were storylines. And as a kid, it's kind of easy to follow the storyline of good versus evil. Because back then, that's how it mostly was. You had good guys and you had bad guys. And, from watching cartoons and everything else, that was a very easy formula to follow. It's not very complex. And so I started, enjoying it as a kid. But I was also, as a kid, very athletic. I was always involved in football, baseball, basketball, wrestling, hopscotch. It didn't matter. Roller skating, anything like that I was game for. And so I was at the University of Tennessee, and not knowing, I was in freshman in college, not knowing what I wanted to do or be or any of that. And all my friends kind of seemed like that they had it figured out. And then one day a guy walks in with it was either a wrestling magazine or Sports Illustrated, I can't really remember, but all I remember was there was a picture of Hulk Hogan on it, and it said America's highest paid professional athlete. And he said, Neal, this is what you ought to do. And it just like was a light bulb just, went off in my head. And I was like, you're right. That's what I'm going to do. So the next day I packed up in the middle of a semester, mind you. I packed up everything and left school, came home. My parents were like, what are you doing here? Because I was at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. I come back to Nashville. My mom and dad get home from work that night and they go, what are you doing here? It's not that they weren't happy to see me, but they were shocked to see me. And then they was more shocked when I told them that I was going to pursue a career in professional wrestling. And so my dad says, well, basically you're going to go join the circus, and so, and really, he wasn't very far off with that. So,
No.
And here in Nashville, getting back to the Nashville theme of this conversation, the Nashville Fairgrounds Sports Arena it should be on the historical register because so many great wrestlers as young wrestlers came through the Memphis, Nashville, Jarrett promotions to further their career and enhance their career. And from basically the 70s, 80s, and 90s, anybody that had ever made their bones in this business at one point or another went through there. And so I went down there regularly on Saturday nights, and fortunately Jeff Jarrett's grandmother, Miss Christine Jarrett, Jerry Jarrett's mom, she was kind enough to at least just point me in the direction, and she says, go see Tojo Yamamoto and see if he will train you. So I go see Tojo, and I'm waiting for him by his car at the end of the matches. And he used to carry this old kendo, it was a kendo stick.
Yeah.
And as he gets closer to his car, the more he's getting that stick ready to look like whack somebody with it. And I'm looking around, I'm going, well, I'm the only knucklehead standing out here. And he goes, get away from my car. And so I said, Mr. Yamamoto, I want to ask you a question. He goes, get away from me, get away from me. And he, brandishes the stick at me a few times. And so I leave, So I come back next week. I go see Miss Christine again. And she says, go back and see him again, And I was like, he tried to beat me with a stick, She goes, go back and see him again. So I go back again, and pretty much the same thing. So this goes on for about 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm thinking, I got to give up on this. I've made a grave mistake here.
Mm-hmm.
I go in there and I tell her, I says, I'm trying to approach him, but he's going to beat me up, And so she says, go back and see him again. So I went back this next time, and I told him, I said, I want to talk to you about being a wrestler. And so he told me, he says, well, we'll come down here, tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. We'll see what you can do. So I'm on cloud 9 now. So I go and come back down there the next morning, and there's about 10 or 12 other guys down there that were already in his wrestling academy. And he said, okay, what I want you to do is, he says, I want you to get a trash can and put one in that corner of the arena, put one in that corner of the arena, put one over there in the corner, and this in the corner. And so I do all that. I come back. I said, okay, what do I do now? And he goes, run. And I looked at him. He goes, run. And so I started running. I'm running the arena. I'm going up the bleachers, down the bleachers, across the arena, up the bleachers, down the bleachers. And they're in the ring training. So I'm running, figuring, he wants to make sure I'm good warmed up, right? After, so they've all been going for about 20 or 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm jogging around the arena watching, So finally they take a quick break. They're all over getting water. So I figure, okay, it's break time. I'll go over and get water. He calls me over. He goes, what are you doing? I said, well, I was going to get some water. He goes, did I say stop running? I said, no. He goes, run. And so I ran again, So they trained for about 2.5, 3 hours. And the trash cans were in every part of the arena for me to throw up in.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
man.
I so about at the end, I'm dying. I am just spent.
Sure.
And so at the end of their training session, he tells me, okay, stop running. And he says, motions me to come over. And I come over, and he goes, be here next week. And that was it, So next week, I get home, I'm having to ice my legs for the next 2 or 3 days. I'm so sore. And so I come back the next week figuring, okay, well, now I'm going to get in the ring. I get there, same routine. Get a trash can and put it in that corner, that corner, that corner, that corner. Run. That's all he would say to me, run. And I would run the whole entire time they worked out. I'm watching guys in the ring. You know, there was a guy who was a former defensive lineman at the University of Tennessee, Craig Brown. He's in there wrestling. Sid Vicious was in there getting tuned up. And all these other young guys are in there going, you know, and I'm just running. I'm running the arena. So finally, after about 4 weeks of this, right? I'm debating when I'm on the drive home. I've made a mistake, or I was already in great shape, so it was hurting, but it wasn't, you know, killing me.
Sure.
And so finally, I think it was about after the third or fourth week, he pulls me over and he goes, "Do you want to quit?" And I said, "No, sir." He said, "Be here next week." So I show up next week. I get the trash cans all set up before he gets there. And I've just, you know, rested until he says run. And so I told him, I said, "I've got the trash cans up." And he goes, "Okay, you get in the ring today." So basically the way the business was way back, you know, 1,000 years ago when I broke in, was they didn't invite Joe Public to come, because everything was very secret. It was very secretive.
Yeah.
You know, it was like the mafia. You know, you just didn't invite everybody under the sun into this industry, into this business. And so basically I was too ignorant to realize this, but he was trying to run me off. You know, thank goodness that I was just young and stupid, you know, because I didn't know that. I wasn't worldly enough to realize,
right,
hey, this guy's just trying to run me off. But then after he realized I wasn't going anywhere, I might as well train him, you know? And that's what he did.
Yeah.
And so for about 1.5 to 2 years, I trained with him and other guys coming up and coming through. And so after that, you know, and he basically taught me, you know, all the tickles and tackles and headlocks and arm locks and takedowns and stuff like that. But the actual psychology of the business, you don't really learn until you're actually doing it, until you're, you know, night in and night out. You're trying this, you're failing at that, you're making corrections here. That's when you start realizing if I'm going to be, really any good at this or not. Some guys realize it pretty early when they don't know how to get a headlock, or, you know, the other tickles and tackles that come along with being a pro wrestler.
Sure,
So later on is when I actually learned how to really be a pro wrestler. To kind of sum it all up.
Yeah, you stuck it out. I mean, you didn't give up on yourself. You worked hard. You got that old school fashion training of just running up and down the stairs and just, you know, basically it takes a lot of discipline to get, you know, into shape and to get, you know, yourself warmed up like you did. So kudos to you for doing that.
It was kind of parallel to if you've ever seen the original movie, and this was an 80s movies, but it's an iconic movie, was the Karate Kid.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, the comparisons
with Daniel-san and Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
And it was like that. And he was old school Japanese. He didn't cut no corners. He was very tough as a trainer, very disciplined as a trainer, and didn't put up with any nonsense or foolishness. I mean, when it was, you know, 5:59, you could be a fool, but at 6 o'clock, you better be ready to work and work hard.
And he had those wooden shoes, I remember, you know, he used to come out to the ring with and wear. And so kind of backtrack a little bit. So growing up, you know, you're watching wrestling, like who were like some of the people that you idolized?
Well, when I was real young, and I'm talking like as a kid, you know, you're 9, 10, 11 years old.
Yeah.
You know, wrestling is so big and over the top.
Yeah.
But here, and this was way before, of course, WWF had blown up to a national scale. It was still a regional company as well.
Yeah.
So I was watching the local wrestling that was promoted by a legendary wrestling promoter, Nick Goulas. And then later on, the Jarretts took over at one point. But of course, when I was, you know, a small kid, Jerry the King Lawler was starting to get some steam. But even before that, Jackie Fargo was legendary, and Dutch Mantell was a guy that I really admired as a fan. And then when I got in the business and was traveling with him, I became a bigger fan of him as a person. I really liked him. I still do. Just love him to death. And but then as you change and you get a little older, you become an adolescent, your vision of wrestling changes a little bit. And this was back when, if you can follow me for a little bit, if your fans can follow me, just try to put yourself in my position. But I mean, used to, we just had 3 channels: ABC, CBS, and NBC. That was the only 3. If nothing was on that you wanted to watch, then you just went out in the yard and played or did whatever.
Yeah.
But when cable television came about, one of the big influences that we had on me as an adolescent was MTV. You know, I mean, a lot of times you would hear songs, but you didn't even know who sang it. You didn't know what they looked like. You just didn't know what, I mean, but MTV kind of, you know, really kind of pulled the curtain back on a lot of the music acts, and music videos was huge during that time. So I believe Jerry Jarrett was very smart in paralleling some of his wrestlers with that kind of, he started doing montage videos of certain wrestlers with a hip rock and roll song. And one of the ones I remember the most was Stan Lane and Steve Kern, the Fabulous Ones.
Yep.
And man, those guys were rock stars. You know, both of them were in great shape, good looking guys. You know, every guy wanted to be them, and every woman wanted to be with them. And so as a young adolescent, you know, teenager, who doesn't want that, right?
Right. The
And
good
so,
looks, the movie star looks, and all that stuff. Yeah.
exactly. So both of those guys were very instrumental in just kind of maybe just starting that spark of like, man, that would be kind of cool to do that. And then later on, and like I said, when we started getting wrestling programs from other parts of the country, one of my favorites ones was Georgia Championship Wrestling with Gordon Soley at 5:05 on Saturday and 6:05 on Sunday. And, you know, Gordon Soley was on there. And of course, that's where I first got to see Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, you know, Nikita Koloff, Ivan Koloff, the Road Warriors, you know, the Wildfire Tommy Rich from Hendersonville, Tennessee, our neighbor.
Yep.
And Buzz Sawyer. So I got to see different wrestling, Dusty Rhodes. I got to see different wrestlers and different styles of wrestling. And you know, of course, that 4 Horsemen thing, man, that was, who doesn't want to be a horseman?
Oh,
you know?
yeah. One of the iconic groups in the whole game. Yeah,
and it kind of made it cool to like the bad guy, you know? So those guys were very instrumental. And I always enjoyed guys who could wrestle, who could actually wrestle. I liked the aspect of it being a competition. Although as a fan, I had suspicions. You know, we all, I mean, yeah, it's magic. You know, David Copperfield's really not cutting the lady in half, but how does he doing it, you know? And so that was the thing that really kind of intrigued me, was how the magic was created. And just, you know, I liked how Georgia Championship Wrestling presented their product as a legitimate sport, you know, because I mean, I loved sports, and I always felt like that the WWF always kind of presented it as a over-the-top spectacle, a little bit too showy, I guess, for the style that I liked. Although I had a great career there, but the Georgia Championship Wrestling, and it's about competition, and Saturday night at the Omni, you know, such and such is going after the belt. And so that was the things that really inspired me as a young person to want to throw my hat in the ring and see what I could do.
Yeah.
Literally.
So you just mentioned you had a you know, some time in the WWE, and made your debut in 1988 as Reno Riggins. Tell me about, you know, signing with them and kind of coming up with the character.
Okay. I was I was wrestling at every, you know, VFW club, every Moose Lodge, every middle school gym, you know, driving 5 hours one way and just making barely gas money, just trying to get my name out there and trying to get experience. And I had been doing that for roughly maybe a year or so, and was really frustrated because I wasn't making really much money. And I was just I was pushing myself pretty hard. And I look back on it now and I sometimes think, maybe I shouldn't have pushed myself so hard at that point in my career. But I was, maybe that was also too the thing that got me, got me there too. So I was, me and my dad have a auto paint and body shop here in Nashville, and worked there when I was a kid and, coming up. And so I was working with him during the days, and then at night I'm driving to Timbuktu to go wrestle and trying to get the experience and whatnot. But I found out that the WWE, this was back when it was still called WWF.
Mm-hmm.
So WWF's coming to town, and they're going to be at the Municipal Auditorium. And I thought this is a grand opportunity for me to go down there and talk with Vince McMahon about getting a job with his company. I just thought that's how simple it was. So I told my dad, I says, I'm gonna leave a little early today. I'm gonna go home, take a shower, put on my suit, grab my portfolio, and I'm gonna go down there and, sweep them off their feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I park and I get there a little early, maybe about 5 o'clock or so. And I see the wrestlers kind of drifting into the back, starting to come in. And
yeah.
Here they come, here comes, Randy Savage, and here comes Andre the Giant. There goes Hulk Hogan. There goes Ultimate Warrior, Ravishing Rick Rude, Dino Bravo. They're just filing in one after one.
Mm-hmm.
So I just grab my stuff and I just go strutting through the back door like I'm one of them, right?
Yeah.
And just out of the blue, some security guy stops me.
Ooh.
He goes, can I help you? I said, yeah. I said, I got an appointment with Vince McMahon about seeing him about getting a job. He goes, no, you don't. he read me so quick.
Oh, no.
And he threw me out of the back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I didn't even get past the doors, So I go back to my car. I'm dejected. I'm mad. Oh my goodness, And so I'm sitting there, and I'd started my truck and I was getting ready to pull out. And I looked over in the passenger seat, and earlier that day at the shop, we'd had a FedEx box delivered to us, and we'd already gotten the contents out. And I just had the empty box laying there, and I thought, wait a minute, if I hold this box this certain way, it looks like it's still sealed. Boom, I grab the box, I jump out of the truck, I run to a different door. I'm over and I'm banging on the back door. Another security guy comes. He goes, yeah, can I help you? I said, I got a FedEx delivery for Vince. I got to get it to him right now. He goes, well, give it to me and I'll give it to him. I go, no. I got to hand deliver it to him. He said, all right, well, come on in. So I get in, I ditch the box, and I'm back there amongst all the wrestlers and all the important road agents and stuff. And now I'm trying to talk to somebody about getting a job. And
wow.
So this one guy comes up, he goes, he looks at me and he goes, I don't recognize that guy. He's out of place. Let me go see if I can help him. So he comes over there. He goes, hey, can I help you? And I says, yeah, I'm here to talk to Vince McMahon about getting a job. He goes, does he know this? I said, sure. I'm just rolling with it, right?
Yeah.
I figured I'm back here. I've already been thrown out once. That's
might as well try it.
Yeah, let's roll the dice here. Roll, as Reno Riggins would say, roll the dice.
Yeah.
So another guy comes up and he goes, yeah, wait a minute. So I'm standing there and feeling like, all right, they're wise to me. They've actually gone to go get security to come throw me out, right? So I'm dug in at this point. I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
And this one guy comes up to me and he says, yeah, can I help you? And I said, yeah. I said, I'm here to talk to Vince McMahon about getting the job. He said, well, he's busy right now. Maybe I can help you. He goes, what do you do? And I said, I wrestle. I was insulted. He asked me, what do you do? And I said, well, I wrestle. He said, oh, you do? He said, how long have you been wrestling? Of course, I fudged on that a little bit. I said, oh, I've been wrestling about 2.5 years. And he said, oh, really? He said, well, who trained you? And I says, Tojo Yamamoto. Well, right before he asked who trained me, he's looking around like, okay, where's security at? Let me get this clown out of here, right? But when I told him Tojo Yamamoto, that was like, and he told me this later.
Yeah.
He told me he was getting ready to run. The guy's name was Terry Garvin. He was the vice president of Titan Sports at the time. He was getting ready to run me out of there. He told me this, but he said, when I mentioned the name Tojo Yamamoto, he said that was the equivalent of you coming in to a law firm, you know, auditioning for a job, and you just walked in with a Harvard law degree. He said, at that point, we couldn't run you out. We had to at least see what you could do just off that alone. So he said, can you be in Bristol, Tennessee tomorrow night? I said, I sure can. So I pack up, you know, I called my best friend, Chip Carroll. Chip wasn't working at the time. I says, Chip, we're going to Bristol tomorrow night. I'm going to wrestle for WWF. So he was like, yeah, let's go. Let's go. So we get in the car. We drive to Bristol, Tennessee the next day. We get there at about 2:00. We see Terry Garvin. He says, yeah, look, he says, everybody's eating. Go in there, get you something to eat. Go to the gym, work out, come back, be here about 5 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, we'll set you up with your opponent and we'll go from there. I said, awesome. So I do all that. 6 o'clock rolls around. They send somebody for me. I go up there and he says, hey, we're going to have you working with Ray Hernandez tonight, Hercules Hernandez. So this is in Bristol, Tennessee at Viking Hall. So they take me in this little room. They introduce me to Ray, and he's being managed by Bobby the Brain Heenan. So
the iconic managers of all time.
Yeah, I'm trying not to look starstruck. I'm trying to look cool, but I'm not doing a good job. I'm just, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And so they tell me everything will be fine. We'll be after just a few minutes, you know. And so I'm pumped. I'm excited, but I've got like an hour and a half, 2 hours before this happens. So you just want to talk about just the nervous energy that goes through your body. Because here you were, you know, 24 hours ago on the outside looking in. It's kind of like if you're sitting in the front row of an NFL game and then the next day you're the quarterback of a team. It was awesome. And so I had, I'm at the gorilla position. And to tell some of your listeners what the gorilla position is, the legendary wrestler, broadcaster, producer, Gorilla Monsoon, he sat there behind the curtain with a monitor and he kept the time on the matches. So we call that the gorilla position. So they said, he sends you to the ring, and I'm looking up, you know, and he's in this old grizzled veteran, and he goes, all right, kid, go to the ring, you know. So I go to the ring and I'm standing out there, and as most people I'd ever been in front of in my life, and I'm standing out there and I'm wearing trunks. And for the first time in my whole entire life, being in a wrestling ring, I felt naked. It was the weirdest feeling. Just standing out there going, I don't have enough clothes on out here. So then about that time, curtain gets pulled back, and here comes Hercules Hernandez. Spotlight hits him, and he's coming through the curtain, and man, he's pumped up. Blood, you can see the blood coming through his veins, and sweat's glistening off his body, and he's got foam coming out of his mouth, and got these big chains, and I'm standing there looking at him. It looks like he's about a football field away from me, and I'm looking at him, and I'm sitting here thinking, this is the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. And I'm looking around, and there's nowhere to run. So I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to do it now, right? So he comes to the ring, and he proceeds to just beat the ever-loving tar out of me.
Oh no!
I'd been in better street fights. I mean, it was rough. And so finally, he puts me in the torture rack. Match is over with. They roll me out of the ring, you know. And I mean, so the referee helps me back to the back, you know, sets me on a stool, and doesn't say really anything to me. And I'm sitting there. I felt like I'd been violated. It was horrible. And so I've got like Matt Burns on the side of my head. I'm still kind of goofy because he hit me with the clothesline. I hit the back of my head on the mat.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I'm like, I was a little punch drunk there, you know.
Sure.
So I'm sitting back there and I'm just trying to, get myself together. then about that time, he comes back with Bobby Heenan, and they both come over there and thank me for the match. And Ray looks at me, he says, "Kid, if you can take a beating like that, they've got to hire you." He says, "Good luck to you." And Bobby Heenan, same thing. He goes, "I hope you make it, kid." And so Terry Garvin comes over to me. He goes, "Well, how was it?" And I really wanted to say, "I'm ready to go home now, sir." But I didn't. Something just told me, I said, "Oh, it was great. It was fun." He says, "Can you be in Winston-Salem tomorrow night?" I said, "Well, I've made it this far. Yeah, I guess so." So we go to Winston-Salem the next night. They've got me paired up with Outlaw Ron Bass, old rough and tough Texan, 6'3", 320 pounds, just big, the curly
Manchu mustache.
Yeah. He had the curly cues on it, man, and he was rough and tough, wild Texan. However, what an absolute night off. He was so easy and so delicate, and that sounds weird coming, in the world of pro wrestling, but he made it look like he's ripping my head off, but I didn't feel a thing. And so then as he's pinning me in the match, he said, "Welcome to the family, kid." And so I got back to the back, and Terry Garvin told me, he says, "Well, kid, you survived it." He said, "I'll send you a booking sheet in a couple of weeks and you'll be on the road." And I was 20 years old and just ready to roll, ready to take on the world. And that's how I got to the WWF.
Wow, what a great story that is. I mean, just like that, you made it, you lived out a dream. Yep. You met so many people. I mean, talk about a dream come true.
It was so I don't know. I really don't know the words to my vocabulary isn't expanded enough to give it the full just due that it needs. But you go a few nights earlier wrestling in front of 50 people, and then the next few nights you're wrestling in front of 10,000, 15,000, 20,000.
Night and day difference.
And it was and once I got there for my first few years, I was nobody knew who I was, kind of the new kid, and not really much thought about me. I was just chopping meat,
Sure.
However, it paid very well. So I was doing pretty good at 20 years old, living out of a suitcase and working for the world's largest wrestling company at that point. And getting to basically, I was getting to see the world for free. I mean, if I looking back on it, I'd probably done it all for free, but the money was just a byproduct of what I was doing. So I was happy about that as well. So, but as I was there for a few years and kind of made the rounds and built a little bit of a reputation up, then I went to Tony Gurria, who was former wrestler, long-term road agent for the WWE. And I said, "Look, Tony," I said, "I'm starting to get stagnant and I've kind of wrestled everybody." And I said, "You think maybe you could put me in some matches and let me work with some of the babyface talent that we have here?" I said, "Just to kind of change things up for me." And sure enough, he did. And for me, that was the best thing he could have ever done for me, because then I really got to show more of my personality, more of my creative side, have more input in the matches with the talent that I was working with. If I'm a babyface and I'm going in and I'm working with Rick Rude, I'm not opening my mouth. I'm not saying, "Well, hey, Rick, let's do this." I wasn't in that position to do that, so I couldn't. But as a heel now, if I'm going out there and I'm wrestling with, maybe, Owen Hart, or if I'm out there working with the Smoking Guns, me and Barry Horowitz wrestling the Smoking Guns, or if I'm in a match with Tatanka, then I have just about, I've got equal say, and I've got more of an opportunity to showcase my talents. And fortunately, I was able to do that for basically the second half of my WWF longevity there. So, but that was a lot of fun. I mean, one of the nights I felt like I really kind of had a coming out party was I was working with Tatanka on Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw was still very new. I mean, it's probably just a few months old. Maybe, I don't think it was even a year old, maybe a few months old. And I'm wrestling Tatanka on Monday Night Raw at the Manhattan Center in downtown Manhattan. This is live television. You got Vince McMahon, Randy Savage on the color commentating over there, I believe. And I mean, we just went out and I love that atmosphere in that building.
Yeah, it was very intimate.
It was very intimate. The fans were right on top of you. They were into it. It was your hardcore wrestling fans, and they're gonna be at full throat the whole night. And so we went out there, and I felt like gave a solid television match versus, and to kind of educate your listeners a little bit, when we would go and we would do what we call a house show match, meaning it's not being televised, it's just for the live audience that night. Well, our pace is a lot different in those types of matches versus a television match. And a television match, man, it was moving and grooving from the time you left the curtain, from the time you got back, because the difference between that and a house show match, the only place they may go is the concession stand and get some popcorn and not too interested in your match if you slow things down too much. But in television, everybody's got that remote control, and they don't like what you're doing, they can just switch
channel,
and be gone. So we were, always, knowing that we had to be moving and grooving the whole entire time we were out there. And I felt like me and Chris Tatanka had great chemistry inside the ring, and I felt like we went out there and gave an all-star performance, and that was kind of a little bit of a coming out party for me to be able to really kind of showcase a little bit more of my talents.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, Monday Night Raw was in its infancy. It was like, it started in '93, and it's now over 30 years old now. So you were there at the very beginning.
Yeah, man, it was great. I still, some of my fondest memories was doing Monday Night Raw. And I've wrestled on Raw many times after that, but switching over to becoming a heel allowed me to work with the babyface talent and actually get to showcase quite a bit more of what I could do. And I was doing a podcast a few nights ago, and a question came up about the WWE Hall of Fame. And here's the thing, because they have a wing for celebrities, and they have a wing for this and a wing for that. And someone asked me that, well, you think they need to have a wing for enhancement talent? I says, if you're, watching a movie, so you're watching Rocky, and Sylvester Stallone wins the Academy Award for Best Actor, well, that's kind of what they're doing in the WWE Hall of Fame. But if you don't have Apollo Creed, then Apollo Creed does the job for Rocky. If you don't have if you don't have a supporting cast, then you don't have the star. So it's kind of, it's trying to make logic of an illogical business is right. Is what I say on that many times. I mean, do I feel like guys like Barry Horowitz and Iron Mike Sharp and guys like that deserve to be in? Well, of course they do. Of course they do. In this business, nobody beat anybody. It's not, this business isn't built upon merit, so it's should there be a WWE for referee, a Hall of Fame for the referees? Well, of course. They're the third guy in the ring. They play an integral part of the magic as well. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, and I don't mean this to sound like sour grapes or anything like that. Let me tell you, I've lived a tremendous life. I've lived a great life. And I'll say this, although later on I was in a tag team with Stephen Dunn, and we became the NWA World Tag Champs, and that was great. We beat the Rock and Roll Express. We did beat the Rock and Roll Express. Rock and Roll Express did us the favor and slipped the belts on us one night. So, I've been, and like a lot of guys that are in this business, nobody starts out being a great superstar. Few exceptions, but everybody starts out, trying to find out who they are. Ric Flair to Randy Savage, all those guys, weren't very good when they first started. But then it's not how you start, but it's how you finish. And all those guys, finish really, really well. But the thing that is my Hall of Fame or my badge of honor, that when I would show up at a TV taping and I would get there early and I would have somebody come up to me like a Kurt Hennig, a Shawn Michaels, an Owen Hart,
Undertaker,
Marty Jannetty, all these guys, the beautiful Bobby. Well, I worked a little bit in WCW. Bobby Eaton would come seek me out. And they would say, "Who are you working with tonight?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I just got here. I haven't seen the lineup." And then the next thing I know, the person that came and asked me, I go look at the lineup and my name would be next to their name. So my badge of honor, my Hall of Fame, my world title was being asked by my peers for the opportunity to have a match with. That was my, when some of the guys who are the best in the world at what they do come and seek you out to do their magic with them, hey, that's my Hall of Fame. It doesn't get any better than that. It just doesn't.
For those listening, can you explain what the role of an enhancement talent is?
Okay, yeah. So basically, you're basically paid to lose. That would be just a layman's term of it, but let me get a little bit more in detail with you about that. My job is to go out and look like a worthy competitive opponent, and also highlight the features of the guy that the company is pushing. The company is a product, okay? They are the product. I'm the window dressing for that product. I'm the packaging for that product, if that makes any sense. And so I try to entice people to like the product or to dislike the product, depending on if I'm working as a good guy or a bad guy. And so, so they want, you to, at the end of the month, buy tickets for pay-per-view or buy that person's merchandise and things of that nature. So I was basically, sometimes I looked at it as saying, hey, I'm part of the marketing team here,
Yeah.
and Lex Luger is a product and I'm help marketing him tonight. He's going to beat me with the torture rack. And, so
Yeah.
that's how it is, sometimes I use the description of, the Harlem Globetrotters, always say is the world's greatest basketball team because they never lose. And they play the same team night in and night out. And I can't remember what the team's name was. The Washington, what are they? But they were I remember as a kid, I would go and watch, Harlem Globetrotters. And that's what it is. They lose to the Harlem Globetrotters every night,
Yeah.
and they are part of the package, So, that's basically what enhancement talent meant. And usually you find guys that do that. They're just they're young, they're learning how to do this craft and trying to, learn from some of the guys who are, at the top level. Although you're at the top level doesn't necessarily mean that you're the top talent.
Right.
Talent and where you are in the pecking order, don't get those two things confused, because they're different. There's guys that have been up here, but talent wise has been, even way down here, so, but I kind of pride myself on being able to go out and have a match with a Viscera, Mabel, Earthquake, and then come back and have a great match with the Smoking Guns or Marty Jannetty or a Shawn Michaels, or go out and have a singles match with Razor Ramon. I was able to adapt to all those styles And basically that, in my opinion, is the definition of a professional. I
Yeah.
was able to do it all, from top to bottom.
And a lot of enhancement talent go on to be worldwide superstars. I mean, look at the Hardy Boys, for instance. They started at a young age, wrestling guys like Razor Ramon and guys like Steve Austin. And, they became, multiple time world tag team champions. Scotty 2 Hotty's another one, went on to become, Scotty 2 Hotty, part of Too Cool. And, just you'd be surprised to find out, some of the best wrestlers in the world got their start wrestling against guys, that were, huge.
And all those guys were there with me when, we were actually, someone sent me a clip a week or so ago of me and Scotty 2 Hotty as a tag team. And I forgot who was wrestling that night, but I thought, Scott Taylor. I hadn't thought about him in years, but he went on and got a bit of a push there, him and Brian Christopher, and that was nice. And then the Hardy Boys, Matt and Jeff, and Matt was there a lot of the times when I was there as enhancement talent. And it just the power of the pen is such a strong thing in the world of pro wrestling. But to those guys' credit, and not to take anything away from them, they were given the ball and they ran with it, and God bless them both. Yeah. And I actually, back in, I think maybe 1998, I was doing a lot of independent work at that time, and I was a tag partner with me and Stephen Dunn, formerly of Well Done. And so Jim Cornette called us up and said, "Hey, do you want to come up and do a television, tag?" And sure, we're definitely interested in that. So we came up and they paired us up with Matt and Jeff. And I don't know if it was Matt and Jeff's first tryout match, or I know that they were on their radar, but maybe they wanted to get a test run with them, and so me and Steve went out there and had a great match with them. Television match, meaning we're moving and grooving, shaking and baking the whole time. And I felt like I had a pretty entertaining television match with them, and I was hoping something more positive on my end, or me and Steve's end, would have came to that, but it didn't. But still, I mean, I feel like I could go out there and work with anybody and try to portray a very positive match or situation, what the company was asking for.
Yeah.
But for some reason, just we weren't penciled in, and somebody else got the spot, next man up, and that's the way this business works.
Yeah, but the way that you've handled yourself, you are a professional. You're doing what's being asked of you. You've traveled around the world, won multiple championships. Tell me about some of the stuff you've done outside of wrestling, like any charity or community service type of stuff, or what do you do outside of the business?
Well, up to about a couple of years ago, I used to volunteer and coach youth baseball.
Oh, really?
I grew
Okay.
I grew up as a huge baseball fan, and I always enjoyed. Of course, I had sons that played baseball, so it just was an excuse for me to find more time. I say excuse, but find more time to spend with them and their friends, and we've met so many great families and kids, and through youth sports. I grew up playing, like I said, football, baseball, basketball, and all these different things. And just remember, I've got friendships that I'm still, some of my best friends in the world are guys that I was 11, 12 years old with, playing, youth sports. And I'm going to give a quick shout out to one of the kids that I had coached, actually a couple of the kids that I had coached. One is playing football. I coached him in baseball, but he's playing football for Vanderbilt University. He's the long snapper.
Oh.
He's all SEC long snapper, Wesley Schilling. I nicknamed him Big Smooth from my wrestling. He was the biggest kid on the team. So I always just said, he's not very fast, but he's smooth. So smooth is fast. So that was one of the things that I learned in wrestling, being smooth is fast.
Being smooth is fast. I
Yeah,
love it.
so I want to give him a shout out. And another kid that I coached, his name is Timon Mitchell, and he had played for the University of Georgia last year, played defensive line, and then transferred this last year to TCU. So he was in the
Okay.
last 2 national championships with different teams. So he might be the only kid that's ever done that. You know, I'd have to look all that up, but great kid, great academic kid. And so is Wesley Schilling. He's probably an all academic SEC as well. Maybe eventually be an all SEC, be an academic All-American. But just great kids, works extremely hard. So I'll show those guys some love. And as I'm speaking, there's just hundreds of other kids that I've coached that have gone on to do great things. And so I'm just proud of all of them. And that's what I like to do. But of course, baseball's around the corner right now. My oldest son, he doesn't play anymore, but my youngest one does. He's a sophomore, and last weekend he went up to Eastern Kentucky University and got to meet the coach up there. And then on Sunday, went to University of Kentucky and got to meet those coaches. So he's trying to eventually get once he comes out of he's still got high school ball to go through, but I think eventually his goal is to go on and try to play college baseball somewhere. So, and he works extremely hard. So, and like I tell everybody, I beat my kids regularly to ensure compliance. No, I don't, but they're good kids. They're really good. They work hard.
See, it's all about moving up the ladder, whether it's baseball or in wrestling. You got to teach them the basics and hope that they strive for success. And you just gotta really have that discipline and determination. So
it's not always the kid that has the most talent, because you hear stories all the time of talent wasted. Those that have talent and don't work hard get passed up by the kids that have less talent but work hard. I always say hard work builds good character, and hard work pays off. And so that's what I've instilled in both my kids, and hopefully they will listen to their old man on a couple of things. And the old man might know what he's talking about, so who knows. But it's fun. Life's a journey anyway. So if a job, big or small, do it well or not at all.
Do you think they might want to go into the MLB or professional baseball?
My youngest son does. My older son wants to be a dentist. So I told him, I said, I spent years trying to knock people's teeth out, and he can put people's teeth in, And at our shop in Nashville, I've got a poster on the wall, and it's a picture of me and a good buddy of mine, Flash Flanagan.
Yeah.
And
I remember him.
And I've got Flash like crashed through a table, and I'm choking him. It's a great picture of me and him, maybe more so of me and less of him. But I've got a picture in our office because, like I said, me and my dad have an auto paint and body shop in Nashville. And so on that poster, there's a little caption that says, I used to wreck bodies, now I fix them. So it's I get a lot of comments of people when they come in to see that. They get a good chuckle out of that. So
that's funny.
That's pretty good.
I'll have to check it out. I'll have to check out the picture. Yeah. So why are you so passionate about helping out in your community?
Well, it's I felt like growing up, people that impacted me positively in my life was my youth football coach, my youth baseball coaches, my youth basketball coaches. I learned something from each and every one of them, and really a whole lot in football, because football is one of those sports you practice 4 or 5 days a week. You only get to play one game. Where in baseball, you're mostly playing. After you get a couple weeks practicing, all right, let's go, and you're playing about every other day. But with football, you kind of get a little bit more of that one-on-one with your coaches, and everything's a little slowed down, not as hectic, not as not everything's riding on the line during practice. So, and just to see the work ethic that they put us through and learn how to go from point A to point B and plan all that. And so I just, and these guys, they were just normal guys. One was a policeman, One guy was a maintenance guy at an apartment complex, and they just, donated their time to come and help the kids and set good examples to, stay out of trouble. You can never go wrong doing the right thing. And just me having those types of people in my life, kept me, you know, on the straight and narrow and trying to, stay out of trouble and do what's right. And there might be a kid out there somewhere on a fence where in his life, he's got a choice to make. He's going to go down this road. He's going to come to a fork.
Mm-hmm.
And, and at that fork, he's got a lot of people chewing in his ears, giving him advice, bad advice, good advice, bad advice, good advice. But when he gets to that fork, he's either going to go right or he's going to get left. And so hopefully, with just spending time with the kids and telling them some of my experiences, and that life is not easy, life is hard. And, but you're going to get through the next day, and just always just to even tell my kids and the kids that I've coached, let's just be undefeated today. Let's just worry about today, live in the moment. I think a lot of us, we get so caught up, and not just kids, but us even as adults. Well, what are we going to do next year or next week or tomorrow? You can't live tomorrow right now.
No.
You got to live right now. And what happened in the past is in the past. I can't live yesterday today. And so I just try to live by that as well, and try to tell the young kids, because there's a lot of pressure. There's so much pressure on these kids today versus when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
The technology today of, I've got 300 followers, or I've got, so what,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just all, I kind of look at it this way too. Life in wrestling, for some of your listeners who may not understand, wrestlers refer to things as a work, as a con, as a facade. And life is a work. If you let it work you, it'll work you into misery.
Mm-hmm.
So don't get caught up in the facade. Don't get caught up with, oh, well, Johnny over here's got him a new Corvette, or don't worry about the Joneses. Don't keep up with the Joneses. Stay in your lane. I tell my guys, sometimes in a ball game things don't go so well, and they come in the dugout and they're pointing fingers. Hey, stay in your lane. Worry about your responsibility.
That's right.
And so no, I get enjoyment. I like to see the kids succeed, and I like to see them fail. And people say, well, man, you're a sadistic son of a gun. No, failure is just a learning opportunity. I mean, and we all fail, we all come short, so it's just a learning opportunity. And the more you fail, the more you learn. And over time, hopefully that'll benefit you, down the road when you come across that bridge again. Well, last time I did this. What if I do this time? Oh, yeah, that's how you do it. And I got over it just fine. Okay.
Right. It's what makes us all human.
Yeah, that's it.
It's all a learning experience. Hey, Neal, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on here. It means a lot to me and the listeners. Where can people find you on social media?
I'm simple. I'm easy. Just Facebook. Neal Hargrove is my shoot name. It's my real name. But like I said, my wrestling world knows me as Reno Riggins. And if you go to that website, or go to my page, there's some information on there. Actually, just this week, we're having and actually we've had pre-sales of a Reno Riggins action figure that has come out. Yeah. And this company reached out to me and asked me if I would be on board with it. And I said, well, sure. I says, no, and actually nobody's wrestling collection is complete without a Reno Riggins action figure.
That's funny.
And I've had people that have done the pre-orders, and they've sent me an email, and this one guy who's about my age, he sends me this picture, and he's got this wrestling ring set up.
Okay.
It's the small,
Mm-hmm.
the action figures,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got like 30 action figures there. lives in Clarksville, Tennessee. And he says, when Reno Riggins shows up, it is on. So I was like, that's right. So I'm sure, Reno Riggins, and I know my kids are going to get an action figure. And then growing up, they grew up loving wrestling. My oldest son wanted to be a pro wrestler. And I kind of, got in his ear a little bit. And I told him, I said, it's very challenging and it's very difficult. And the opportunities aren't nowhere as near what I had years ago.
It's changed a lot.
It has. And I just, I told him, I said, why don't we stick to something a little bit different? Of course, he was heartbroken a little bit, but I think now he's in his second year of college. And I think he's very grateful that we kind of had a discussion about that. But, they grew up having the action figures and stuff like that here at the house. So Reno Riggins is probably going to take his Reno Riggins action figure and beat everybody in the house with it. So that's coming.
I love it. Well, again, thank you for coming on. You're more than welcome to come back.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.